permission based on the work that we've been doing over the past 6 years. And a lot of our work is charity based. So we help indigent kids, indigent children. Most of the people we help can't even be on a webinar like this because they simply don't have the access to the computer or the smartphones, or they don't have access to internet. They don't have access to all the data. So these are people who live in both areas and they are helpless many times. So we started reaching out to them and started helping them. Based on that, the government was very impressed, and the Nigerian government has given us a wide range of access to treating using our approach, which is called the building strength approach, a range of brain disorders, and then we've added sickle cell disease to it. In fact, we've added a lot of other things that the government has seen that we have a credible approach to it. And I'll say a little bit about the building strength approach. By the way, please feel free to type in your questions and your chats. We shall address them. Even during the call, I might just look at it and say, okay, let's address that as well. So feel free to interact. In the course of our work, we also published a scientific paper. It's published on the National Institute of Health in a reputable Nigerian journal as well, and then in the European journal. So we know what we're talking about, just to say the least. And we're as soon as we get the funding, we'll start carrying out more research. And like I said, this is a charity-based. Most of our revenue from the work that we're doing to the paid consultations and the services that we provide to the general public are funded back into the clinic so that we can help more and more people in Nigeria and hopefully beyond Nigeria. And these are, like I said, some of the conditions that we address under the supervision of the Federal Ministry of Health. We do not use medications specifically at all. We use what are known as supplements and nutraceuticals, which are a higher version of supplements. Pharmaceutical-based supplements would be a more accurate definition of a nutraceutical. And we found out that these help to strengthen the brain and address certain things that medications alone cannot address. And again, I'll get back into it more. Excuse me. Nigeria is #1 in the world when it comes to sickle cell disease, so we also address that as well. Let's talk about autism. I once read this quote by Winston Churchill, a former Prime Minister of the UK, and he said, Russia is a riddle wrapped up in a mystery inside an enigma. If you know anything about Winston Churchill, he loved to use words. But when I read it, I think at that time I was really, really getting to know and understand autism. And I was like, goodness gracious, that is a very apt description of autism. Because autism is a riddle wrapped up in a mystery inside an enigma. That's exactly how I feel about it. Because once you just get to know how to handle one kid with autism, and then you think you've got a handle on it, the next kid that comes up, it defies all your processes, all your treatments, and then you have to start again and figure it out. So over the years, we've had to do a lot of figuring out, and we've also, thankfully, thank God, we've also been able to now figure out what works and what doesn't, and now put it into a system. I think that's what parents are looking for. I think many times parents just go online and they see this person or they see that person, and the person is talking about, oh, you do this, so everybody goes and does that. Then after a while, that doesn't work, they try something else, they try something else, and try something else. No, what we're doing is that we're providing a clear-cut system, and it's going to be about 6 months to help individuals on autism understand the process and understand what to do. Let's define what autism is. Autism is characterized by delays in understanding and use of language, unusual response to sensory stimuli, insistence on routines, and resistance to change, and difficulties with typical social interactions. Some children are aggressive and some have been described as animalistic. And when I saw this, especially this last sentence, I felt, yes, this really describes autism. All the other descriptions, they'll just mention 3 things and that's it. From what we've seen, especially in African countries, we know that autism tends to be more severe in African countries like Nigeria. The studies show that there's higher rates of lack of speech, there's more aggression, And this animalistic, I want to say, what do I mean by animalistic? Sometimes behaving, and I want to be very careful as I say this, but in a subhuman way, not the way a normal a human child would behave sometimes. So we've had patients who would absolutely refuse to go to the bathroom, the potty, and use the potty of the toilet. They'd rather go into a corner of a closet and poo there. And when they poo, they'll put their fingers into the poo and smear it over the wall. There are other kids that we know of, and I know this is distressing. There are other kids that we know of who would actually um, start committing sexual acts, wanting to do sexual acts even with animals. We're seeing some changes, and these are the more severe forms, obviously. But again, the solutions can be gotten. So let's look at some of the problems with the treatments. Now, autism is 1 in 50 people. It used to be 1 in 1,000, or probably 20 years ago, 1 in 2,000. Now it's about 1 in 50. So you can see that there's a rapid increase. And there are reasons for that, but we're not going to go into that. What I want to talk about is that the way autism is addressed is like, especially by healthcare professionals, is that it's a psychiatric problem, or it's a psychological problem. And once people start thinking psychiatric and psychological, it means, okay, so we just have to deal with their behavior. We want to improve their speech. And basically, there's all kinds of therapies that work on the child or the individual from the outside. They don't specifically think to say, what is going on in the brain of this child? What's going on in the gut? What's going on in the immune system? And we're finding out that these systems are crucial to the understanding and treatment of autism. And that is what we want to talk about. So let's just keep going for a while. Again, please feel free to ask questions. So you have all this list of different people and different specialists, ABA, top of the line. This is the standard accepted treatment. And ABA is known as the applied behavioral therapists. And they're the ones who really understand the behavior and the movement and the speech and all that, and they work with the kids. The problem, of course, is that in Nigeria, Africa, we don't have access to many of these people. And those that have access to them, they have to pay an arm and a leg. And it's a very long period of time, not 1 month, not 2 months, not 6 months, but years to get, in my opinion, minimal improvements. Occupational health is also an avenue. Speech therapy, equine therapy refers to horses. Music therapy, obviously, you know what it is. You've got the pediatricians, you've got the neurologists, you've got the psychiatrists. Pediatricians have admitted to me that they have no idea what to do with a child with autism. So they're always sending them to a speech therapist or a behavioral therapists if they have access or they know where they are. And most of the time, we just don't know where they are. For kids who are very, very aggressive, or they have seizures, of course, the psychiatrists and the neurologists can give them medication. But sometimes the parents feel that that medication can be so harsh on their brains and their minds that they would rather the children just be aggressive and hyperactive and act more like children than act like children who can't think or who can't move, who have no consciousness because of the medications that are being given. Of course, if the child is becoming so aggressive that he's attacking his mother, of course you want to stop that. But we're trying to say that there's a better way. There's a much better way to address it. There are other mothers we've seen who have gotten great results from their children. I know a mother of 3 who had all 3 children had autism. She was a fighter. She was able to take care of these kids. She spent a lot of time in prayer, a lot of time studying and researching, a lot of time working with their behaviors, a lot of time studying the foods to eat and the foods to avoid, and she was able to help each of these kids. That's because she had a husband, or she was fortunate to have a husband or support. And she's based in Nigeria, who the husband and the support, they were able to take care of her financial needs, but she had the time to give the attention to these kids. I know a lady in the United States whose son too is completely free of autism, and he's not being diagnosed that way. I've interacted with him. He had all the symptoms of autism when he was growing up. Again, her husband, I guess, works in a very big technical company. So he's getting earning decent money, so she could pay attention. Most mothers simply do not have access to this. So, what is the solution? We wanted to, over the years, we've honed and rehoned and studied and put together different treatment therapies, so that it's like a system. You take the person, take the parent by the hand, and you show them, you teach them what's going on. You show them why this step is important, what it does. Then you go back and forth. Then the next step, you give them that. Next step, you give them another sequence of medications. I don't know what they're meds. Like I said, they're supplements, they're nutraceuticals, and then you take them by the hand. You communicate with them back and forth. They tell you how the child is responding, because not all children respond well. But more importantly, you are addressing the biological problems, and there are biological problems going on in the brain and body. I will talk about that very soon. So this is our understanding of autism. Autism is a medical condition. It's not a psychiatric condition. It's not a psychological condition. It's a medical condition that affects about 4 to 5 different systems. Obviously, the brain. But you know what? If you do a medical MRI test, you do all the common tests that are done in hospitals today, you wouldn't find any difference. It would look exactly like any other child's brain. So most times doctors will just say, there's nothing here, we can't see anything. And if doctors can't see anything, they cannot treat you. And so they do a lot of lab tests too. Maybe they test the blood, heavy metals, they test the feces, for the stools, for bugs. And many times they don't even see these bugs, because many of these bugs cannot be cultured. So the long run is, at the end of the day, you run a battery of tests if you've been fortunate to be in a hospital or you have the money to run a battery of tests, and you don't find anything. But what we know for sure is that the immune system is affected, the hormones are affected to some degree, what is known as the detoxification system is affected, and last but not the least, certainly not the least, the digestive system is affected. And I'm going to hone in on the 5th one so that we can really understand how we approach this. Our approach is to address both the digestive system first and foremost, and then address the brain. You don't start, when we first started, we started addressing the brain. Oh yeah, we gotta boost the brain's function. We gotta give them good supplements that will improve cell-to-cell communication in the brain. We have to detoxify the brain. And we found out that even though we had some degree of success, and maybe some of you do have some degree of success, you buy a nice supplement on the internet, and they say it's good for the brain, especially for the brain of children with autism. You take it and they use it, and it works a little bit for a little while, and then it stops working. That's because we have not addressed the main thing, which is the digestive system. There's a lot of what we would call it. If your house is leaking, if the roof is leaking, you don't start mopping the floor. You don't start trying to spray and get everything back in place when there's water coming in from the ceiling. The first thing you do is to close the leakage, so that when you close leakage, there's no more water coming in. You can now begin to address the decor and the arrangement of furniture in the room. Don't start doing that first. And that's what the problem is. We're addressing the brain, we're addressing outside behavior, outside speech. Meanwhile, there are some things that are going on primarily in the digestive system, which are not being addressed. And that's a picture of the digestive system. The most important aspect of the digestive system when it comes to autism is this around this big portion here that is like an upside down U, right? This is the colon. And we'll be talking about that a little bit more. This is where the action lies. And everybody thinks, oh, there's nothing here. This is just where the stools are formed. We can get rid of it. Big mistake. This is where the action lies. Any questions so far? Let me see. Any questions? Any questions? Any questions? Any questions? No, I don't see any questions. So remember, please feel free to ask a question. This is why I like this quote so much. This was given to me by a professor of biochemistry when I was writing my first book. And he said, I am convinced that proper digestion is the great secret of life. It is now only after 10, 15 years that I'm seeing the wisdom of these words. If the digestive system is healthy, if you can get the digestive system to be healthy, you can, to a large extent, I would say at least 80%, reverse many of the symptoms and problems of children with autism. The brain will just be so easy to take care of. And that's why I have this quote here. The very best thing you can do for the child is to ensure that his or her digestive system is healthy. How do we do that? Well, that's part of our process. But let me ask you, you may be asking, why is that? Why is the gut so important? Well, here are some of the obvious things. If you don't digest food, your cells don't get enough nutrients. If your cells don't get enough nutrients, they malfunction, they die. So first and foremost, you want to ensure that the digestive system is healthy and well so that it can break down the food and absorb the food, and the food can get into the right places, first and foremost. But also, we now know that the immune system, which is extremely important for life, I'm sure you agree about that. The immune system, 80% of the immune system is in the digestive system. And studies are showing that a large part of the health of the brain and the development of the brain is as a result of what the immune system was doing right when the child was in the mother's womb. So if we address the immune system, even in the pregnant mother, and ensure that the immune system is healthy, you are less likely to have a child with autism. But that's another talk for another day. The nervous system, after the brain, the gut has the most nerve fibers. After the brain, the gut, in fact, not after the brain, excuse me, serotonin, some of you have heard about serotonin for antidepressant. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter that's released when people get high, all the drugs. Dopamine is boom, it's like a reward neurotransmitter. When you've achieved a goal, when you've accomplished something, get a dopamine hit. These are chemicals that are crucial for the enjoyment and the living of life. Believe it or not, the gut produces 90% of your serotonin and over 50% of your dopamine. Not the brain, but the gut. It's in the gut where certain vitamins are manufactured, and of course, we will be talking about microbes. We're just beginning to understand the importance of certain bacteria, viruses, fungi, yeast infections. We now begin to see the role these play in the health and wellness of the brain. And we address all this. I put this quote here to just buttress the first point where I say that. And let me go back to it. I don't want to gloss over this because this is key. The human body heals itself, and proper nutrition provides the resources needed to accomplish that task. The human body heals itself. Raising your child is not acting well, is not functioning well, is that to some degree, he or she's brain is not receiving the proper nutrition so that the brain can in turn heal itself. Not just the brain now, but the gut, the digestive system, the endocrine system. There's a dysfunction going on. Their ability to heal and to repair and to recover is being compromised, let's put it that way, by activities in the body, some of them from the microbes that are preventing them from using nutrients or from receiving nutrients into their cells so that they can do the work of keeping you healthy or keeping your child healthy. So we want to hone in on that. Let's talk a little bit about the connection between the gut and the brain. So the primary brain is obviously your brain, the gut is down here. We are now beginning to find out there's a lot of communication. What goes on here will affect the brain. What goes on in the brain will affect the gut. I have children who are, it's a family of 4, but the last 2 are twins. have sickle cell disease. As I mentioned to you, we do a lot with sickle cell disease as well. The last two are twins. What we found out, is that they're like 6 and 7. One child will have a crisis, the other child will have a crisis. Right, the other twin automatically, and they're identical twins. They'll have a crisis at the same time. In fact, when they came to the clinic one day, they had lost both their fronts. One of their front teeth had been lost. The same position at the same time. So it was just interesting how close they were. Well, in the same way, we're beginning to see that the brain and the gut are like 6 and 7. What affects the brain affects the gut, and vice versa. In fact, they're finding out that the gut sends many more fibers, informational fibers to the brain than vice versa. In fact, up to 90% of the information goes from the gut to the brain, not the other way around. So you can see that the gut is influencing the brain to a very, very large extent. Excuse me. So as I said, we want to start by fixing the gut. And this is a whole list of things that are addressed when we decide to fix the gut. We're not going to go through all this today, but not the number 3, I believe I looked at this. So number 3 is the microbiome. We now know that the bacteria that are in the gut are responsible for a lot of the influence on the brain. So we start with that. In fact, the bacteria are also responsible for production of the serotonin and dopamine. And this is a point that I like to bring up. These same bacteria are responsible for aggression. They're responsible for attention problems. These same bacteria affect your speech, believe it or not. They affect the child's speech. They affect the child's sleep patterns. These same bacteria, and there are so many different kinds of bacteria and microbes. So it's not just about bacteria alone, but there are microbes, viruses too, that can affect these things. I mentioned the animalistic behavior at the beginning. Is the microbes that push those behaviors and make them do things that they're not supposed to do. It's the microbes that push their choice of food. It's the microbes that push their how do we put it now? If a child just wants sweets all the time, it's because there are microbes in the guts that are like the sweets, and that are pushing the child's brain to eat more sweets or starches or gluten. Believe it or not, I know it's hard to believe, but it's these other entities that have overgrown, let's put it that way. We all have different kinds of good bugs and bad bugs, and good bugs and bad bugs. Many times in autism, because of maybe infections or maybe a disruption in the balance of the bacteria, you have the bads, what we call bad bugs, growing much more than the good bugs are. Candida is another thing that causes issues. And food drives all these different kinds of bugs. And when they eat, when you keep on giving the child those sweet things, when you give the child the starchy foods, when you give the child the sugary foods, these feed the bad bacteria and make the bad bacteria grow. So we want to reverse that. So yes, diet is important, but we also want to fix what has already happened over the years in your child. And we've had a couple of wonderful stories from this. I remember, and I think this is on our Facebook page, in Kiruka, son was, oh my goodness, all sorts of issues, hyperactive, all the classical symptoms of autism. He wasn't behaving like a normal child at all. And so what we started to do, and we explained to her, we sent her the videos, we gave her access to step-by-step pamphlets. She had access to me, she would reach out to me. And we did that over a period of time. And within a month or two, the child was already speaking more words. He had calmed down. And now this is about 5 months since then now. Remarkable improvements. All because we addressed the gut first. We made the main thing the main thing. We we started first things first. Another thing that we found out too with the gut is that it's not just about microbes, but it's also toxins. There are also heavy metals. Probably you've heard about mercury and lead. Many of these children, maybe some for some genetic reason, are not able to detoxify or remove toxins and metals. So those heavy metals like lead and mercury accumulate in the gut. And what happens is that the microbes also, some of these microbes like the yeast, feed on things like mercury and multiply. It's like a fertile ground for them. So they multiply when there's a lot more mercury. That's another thing that has to be addressed. So it's not just about the microbes, but it's also about toxins, about chemicals that are that's come out of the digestive system into the bloodstream. So we need to address all of that. But again, it starts with the gut. Once we finish with the gut, we can now address the brain. And it doesn't take that long. We usually, within about 2 or 3 months, we start dealing with the brain. These are some of the things I also do with regards to the brain as well. So it's very important that it's, again, like I said, it's a systemic approach and a step-by-step approach. You've got to deal with the gut, and you've got to deal with the brain. And by the way, we now know that there are certain centers. They've started a study they started a couple of studies it's about 2 or 3 years ago, where they started looking at the feces of the stools of children with autism, and they compared with the stools of children without autism, and they found out which bugs are present, which bugs are lacking. They compared the two. Now they went ahead and did a study and I'm going to just say this, but it may sound gross and off-putting to you, but believe me, it's a standard treatment now for certain diseases, where they took the feces, they cleaned it up of normal children, or shall we say normal, typical children, and they put those same feces, cleaned up feces, into the guts of children with autism. And within weeks, they had improved. And that improvement was sustained for over 2 years. Many of them have lost, I think there was about 20 children. They've lost their diagnosis of autism simply because they took out the feces of one and put it in the other. Now, I know it sounds really gross and it has to be done. It is not approved yet. They're still doing studies, but it has to be done in a really, really, really controlled environment. And some doctors have gone ahead and they are doing it. I believe, I don't know of any specific one, but one of my patients too has gone to I think they've scheduled an appointment in the UK to go do it, but it has to be done very, very carefully. So what we do, and we've already been doing something like this, not the feces part, but something that basically we look at what the child needs, and we put those microbes back we take out the bad microbes first, then we put the good microbes into the gut, and we look at what happens. And for those who have gone through our process, we've had some tremendous results with it. And it usually takes us about 6 months, actually just about 6 months. And then after about 6 months, the parents have seen good results. Then based on what they want, if they want to continue, we let them continue. We keep on working with them. If they don't, we just give them some guidelines and they move on. But quite frankly, it shouldn't take more than 6 months if it's done right. So what we're going to do, what we offer to help for those of you who are interested, we do offer a series of things. And I'm working with other healthcare professionals, other researchers, which are creating a database that has only exclusive, only people with exclusive access can get into it, where we have all the videos, where we talk about all these different segments of health, the microbiome, the gut, the brain, what happens in the brain. We know we didn't talk about the brain because to me, that's not the most important thing. How to improve speech, that's another thing we talk about. We give direction. We point you to certain supplements that can work, that we found to work well. Some of these supplements can only be gotten through a doctor. So you have access to me because we'll be able to get those supplements at a discounted rate. And then we can bring them in and then send it to you wherever you are in the world. So we're working on putting all that together. And that's for people who have gotten into the program. And of course, there is a a fee involved, but I mean, that's the way we're able to do what we're doing. And then, like I said before, the majority of this money goes directly into servicing and helping children of indigent parents in remote areas, children with sickle cell disease. By the way, Nigeria is number one in the world when it comes to sickle cell disease. We have almost 200,000 children being born every year. Half of them, sometimes even 75% of them, would not reach their 50th birthday. That's about 100,000 children dying every year from sickle cell disease. And we found out that there are simple nutrients that can be used, boom, just like that, to help these kids live a normal life. Not medication, not any procedure. There are some simple nutrients that can help these children. So where a lot of our money and attention is going towards doing that, what we're doing with these with this program and what we're offering to you is to help us to raise the funds to do those things that we need to do. So don't think we're just trying to chop your money. Okay, that's some of our access. Okay, so I'm going to just okay. These are other topics that I think we should be doing this at least once a month. So these are other topics that we will be talking about. So here's a big reveal. Normally, I charge a $250 consultation in the US, so parents have access to me. It should be the other way around. So instead of paying, if you want to have access, we can, and you take this up, we charge $225 as opposed to $250 for consultation. Now, for all the things that we talked about, the access, the videos, the weekly calls on a monthly basis, that would normally be about $500 a month. You can have access to all this for $350 a month. For 6 months, this would have been $2,100, but if you want to pay in full upfront, you pay $1,500 as opposed to $2,100. That is our offer to you for joining us on this program. All right, questions? Okay, I see some questions here. All right, what do you guys think so far? Please feel free to type in your questions. Okay, I have a 3-year-old who was getting to her mind once I made her speak before one. Suddenly she stopped saying that word, which was light. I didn't think anything of it. Later she picked up water, and that has been the only thing she says. Okay, yeah, that sounds like aggressive autism. She says, to date, I got a bit of help and took her for evaluation. I told she has got ASD and addressed it as nonverbal. Therapy is so expensive. She only babbles. She does repetitive things like jumping, spinning, but she understands simple things. When spoken to, she doesn't respond in class as well. I came across a doctor known as Nemechek on YouTube who mentioned inulin and omega-3 and olive oil to help the gut. I need to know how to help her guts and brain, so to speak. I don't believe therapy can help her if the guts and brains are not healed. Absolutely true. She's also super hyperactive. Where are you in the world? I mean, that's okay. Comfort wants to know, how can these toxins be removed from kids with autism? Well, that's part of our program. We said the first 1 to 2 months, about 6 weeks, 4 weeks to 6 weeks is addressed where is the whole program. Okay, I mean, that's in Lagos. So there's a whole program that's we use a combination of different nutraceuticals to safely push out all the bad gut bugs, the bad microbes, the heavy metals, the toxins, safely help your child push all of them out. So your child is basically stooling all that stuff out. But we're also rapidly replacing with the good bacteria. So it's a question of it's a question of really of plumbing. You're pushing stuff out and you're putting the good stuff in. All right, any more questions? Any more questions? I feel you can feel free to reach us anywhere. through our staff. Solomon is on the platform, I believe. Yes, that's super cool. So if you have any more questions, please reach out to us. I don't see any more questions. And I think I'm going to just say thank you for joining us today. God bless you. We will continue to offer this seminars and these programs over a period of time because that is part of our mission and our mandate from the federal government of Nigeria to educate Africans and also people around the world on the importance of dealing with the underlying factors, especially where the brain is concerned, especially where autism is concerned. So thank you again. God bless, and I will end this program here. Okay. How do we get out of this?